All right, first reading of How to Lose a Planet, the Afro Future Epic. First chapter Kato, the Prison Break. Kato Washington used his left hand to rub at the pain in his stomach where the guard had shot him. He held his right hand by the open food tray slot. It's too early in the morning for repeating myself. Take your mail, Kato. Vector, the head segregation guard, handed him a gray cylinder about the size of a pinky and a black rubber thimble just small enough for his forefinger. Hey, Kato. Vector sounded like he had stepped away from the iron door and was approaching again. Why wouldn't you kill? Kato took a deep breath. The truest answer was because years ago he had killed his grandfather. Afterward, he joined the army and realized too late that he couldn't kill again. Because I'm a good guy, he said, hoping to annoy Vector. And because violence is never the answer. That's why people protesting the war send me the fan mail. But if violence is never the answer, then why are you here? Because the government said. Exactly. Because the government said. That's all that matters. And the same goes for starfighters. Kato eyed the spot of rust under the door's tiny window, about the size of his hand, as red as his grandfather's mortal wound and shaped like a boot. He tried to imagine wearing it instead of imagining Vector's smug, thin-lipped grin. He could hear the clacking heels of the guard's shoes as he walked away. Vector! Vector! His frustration gave his voice a raspy edge. Vector, my mirror still isn't working. It's my right to earn my 5 minutes. Vector laughed and continued walking. I'm very concerned. Your overlords might be too. Epigenetics is big business. Kato squeezed a small gray cylinder and the thimble to keep himself from punching the door. He sat on the edge of his cot. I wish they'd stuck me in a military prison, he said. Military prisons were teeming with Moonwa prisoners of war, and because of risk of infection and cross-contamination, Moonwa and human prisoners were detained separately. Wouldn't be arguing with civilian guards about starfighters. His stomach grumbled as he looked around the cell, not much bigger than the bathroom of his childhood home. The thimble slipped easily onto his right forefinger as he walked to the cinder block wall opposite his cot. He disassembled the cylinder into 4 cylindrical fragments and attached them to the cell's wall. Each fragment marked the corner of a rectangle. When he squeezed his thumb against the thimble on his forefinger, 4 lines of pixelated white light connected the 4 fragments. The lines spread like spills of white paint sliding toward each other from the top, bottom, and sides until a white rectangle illuminated the cell's wall. He sat in his cot, eyed the rectangle, and decided that its 30-inch diagonal was large enough for him to read from the seat. He glanced at the sunlight streaking through the barred window to his right and pressed his thumb against the thimble and deactivated the rectangle. He wasn't ready yet to hear from the outside world. But mail call was only available 1 day of the week for segregation inmates. Tomorrow afternoon, Vector would return to reclaim the cylinder and thimble, and his mail would be uploaded to a database where all his correspondence was kept. The day passed uneventfully. By nightfall, Kato had gone through most of his messages. He was lying on his cot, distressed from stomach pain while hearing the occasional yelp and music from the far side of the prison. The room's darkness gave him a sense of safety, as if it were hiding him from the final piece of unopened mail and the sad news it might carry. He rose from his cot to look out his window. Beyond the chain-link fences that surrounded a pair of recreation yards, there was a forest, hundreds of meters away and illuminated by the prison's lights. A dirt field where a new addition to the prison was going to be built separated the forest and the fences. Above were 2 moons, beige surfaces trimmed with wisps of white clouds. The closest was a crescent, but still large enough with its corona that he'd have to use his entire hand to block it from sight. He could encircle the other moon with a ring formed by touching the tips of his middle finger and thumb. When he returned to his cot, he rubbed his thumb against the thimble he put back on his forefinger a few minutes ago, gently so he wouldn't activate the 4 fragments on the wall. He thought about his unopened letter from an army friend. Danny.